golden exactly, but
It's kind of cool. Do you guys make these?
we did. There is a bit of spray paint on the parking lot out there. I
awesome.
won't say who that was. Okay, so to start us off, who am I joined here with?
Hi everyone, I'm Phroxzon. I'm the lead gameplay designer for League.
Nice. What exactly does the lead gameplay designer do?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So basically, I'm the design stakeholder for a lot of the different teams. So like modes, champions, Summoner's Rift, which includes kind of player behavior, seasonal SR updates, live balance, ranked systems as well. We have some tools teams as well. Yeah, just a lot of stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of stuff, and I guess that'll take me into my first question. So I started playing League back in 2013, and I was pretty lucky to pick a game that lasted for so long.
Totally.
So my first question is, what are the factors that you see that allows League of Legends to be a 16-year-old game and still so popular as it is today?
Yeah, I definitely think the care with which we update the game and the frequency and how accurate that is has been a major factor in our staying power. Also, I would say that the novelty of experiences that we create, and especially over the years, how integrated that feels across the ecosystem, including esports, has been just a major factor. If we didn't have any one of those major pieces like esports or a big mode or any of the around game stuff that happens or Summoner's Rift, like all of that
Yeah.
comes together to combine with the narrative and the lore and all of those types of things. All of that combined just feels like a massive experience that is hard to get in other forms of media or entertainment.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on that. It's, from a player perspective, I'm, checking online everywhere, and I just see like, oh, there's this new thing coming out.
Yeah.
And it's always so exciting how you guys come up with constantly just new stuff, new game modes, new changes to ranking, just everything. It's always constantly updated, and I love it. With that, you mentioned a little bit about competitive. So we're at MSI here today, and so I figured I'd ask you, considering you are the lead designer for this, where do you view the game's current balance, and how does it kind of shape the competitive experience at MSI? And is that something the League of Legends team kind of shapes, or do you do tweaks and it evolves into something?
Yeah, pretty happy with the balance state. We had a pretty aggressive set of changes in 15-12 or 25-12, whatever you want to call it. We had a pretty aggressive set of changes, but we were pretty light in 25-13 because we were pretty happy with how those changes landed. Overall, I think that's kind of manifested in the tournament. There's a lot of different play styles that are available, a lot of different champions in each of the roles, and so pretty happy with that. I would say that Fearless on the whole has really helped with a lot of the ability to balance the game for the competitive scene, just because, even if we were to do a perfect job with balance, there's just some amount of comfort and realistic practicalities around teams' practice times that just make it so that, even if other champions are viable, you still would opt to play into the champions that you're comfortable with. There's only so many hours in the day to practice, and so Fearless definitely helps. And it also helps on the balance side insofar as like some champions are just hard to balance for competitive and regular play at the same time.
Yeah, I definitely feel you with that, because like in SoloQ, I'll I'll look at OPGG and I'll see the different tier lists and things like that, but I'm always like, well, I don't think Kog'Maw is gonna have a 58% win rate next patch.
Yeah.
I don't exactly want to spend all of my time learning that champion when I know that I'm good on Ezreal, Caitlyn, things like that. I totally get that for the competitive experience, and it's a sprint this tournament.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
2.5 weeks. I love the team fighting though.
Yeah.
That's something that I've absolutely loved this tournament. Hopefully other people enjoy it too. But
yeah, all the teams are very good at team fighting.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that for Fearless in particular, just the
sorry, just to be clear, you're saying feelers?
Fearless draft.
Fearless.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry,
okay.
my accent.
No, no, totally. That makes sense.
Yeah, for Fearless draft, even though Fearless draft is active, some of the champions like Skarner or Callista, are still, we have to keep them suppressed. Callista. We have to keep it suppressed win rates, and so that's unfortunate. And, there's just, even with Fearless, like it doesn't, fully solve the pro-diversity issue, but it definitely helps a lot. Yeah.
I feel like with Callista especially, I actually, when I was one game from Challenger, I played like 30 games of Callista.
Okay.
And that champion, when played correctly, when on low ping, when you're coordinating with your team, that champion is something different in the hands of a good player.
Yeah, totally.
And that win rate thing is just kind of such a hard thing to get right. I guess with that, I'm gonna kind of talk about the new player experience, because Kalista's a hard champion, and a lot of champions are hard in League of Legends. So I guess I want to give a little backstory for my bias on how I view new player experience, and then maybe I'd love to get your thoughts, because for me personally, if I'm starting up a new video game, a new multiplayer online game, tons of things to learn, there's strategy to it, there's a ranked queue, I'm gonna go on Twitch, I'm gonna go on YouTube, and I'm gonna look up guides, strategies, different things like that. I think it's actually almost impossible for a game company to natively tell you how to play their multiplayer online game, right? How does League of Legends just approach this learning, this massive lexicon?
Yeah, so one of the things we've been heavily reliant on is just word of mouth and friends and communities. Like you said, that is one of the most effective ways to jumpstart someone's learning trajectory in League. And at present, we kind of give basically just the bare bones of things that are required to learn the game, but we have been investing a lot in things like Swift Play or things like Brawl that kind of break down some of the fundamentals of how you would play the game, because we just know that, people don't want to read wikis and wikis full of things.
Yeah.
As a person who's kind of, stewarding design documentation for designers,
don't
read design documentation, that's just kind of it's not a thing that people outside of a certain subset of people want to do, right? And so the thing that we kind of landed on was finding ways for friends to play with friends of large skill gaps. And so Brawl and Swift Play in particular were very aimed at that. So Swift Play is a pretty extensive rubber banding system. Brawl, it's really hard to individually snowball. And of course, that may make the experienced players feel kind of bad when playing it, but we feel like it's important to have those types of experiences and just experiment a little bit and see, was Brawl actually successful in helping new players learn the game? What is Swift Play actually successful in helping new players learn the game? That type of stuff. Yeah.
I guess, I'm sitting here in front of you. I'll give you anecdotally. I have a lot of friends that I just met through, different gaming communities, Twitter and online. Having been online for so long, you just meet people who play whatever games, even pro players in other games, and they're like, oh, let me play League of Legends with you. And when Brawl came out, when Arena came out, different types of ways to experience League, it was kind of easier to grab my friends and pull them into it and not have to give them the entire spiel on League of Legends, right? It's like chess with 5 players, or it's like hockey, or it's these different types of analogies that you might give to your friends when starting playing the game. Brawl was actually very good for getting my friends 10 minutes. Let's just mess around on a new champion and stuff like that. So I think as weird as it does feel for a high level player to play those game modes, because I couldn't solo queue. You're totally right on that. I think it was pretty digestible, and with further development, it's definitely a direction for people to learn the game.
Yeah, and so it kind of gives us a lot of just understanding what all our playing pieces are, basically, in terms of let's just say, okay, maybe there's a world where someone goes into the tutorial, but then after they finish the tutorial, you have to play Brawl until you get to level 15, and then, after that, you have to play Swift Play until you get to level 30, and it just brings up a lot of those types of conversations where there are, further things that we could do from where we are today that just based on the effectiveness of how we've tested a bunch of these different things, we can kind of stitch them together or design new experiences that also just make that flow a lot better. So it's something that we're thinking a lot more about, especially in the social space, because we know that that's just the most effective way that people both get into the game and then learn the game.
Yeah, I really love the social aspect of League of Legends. Weirdly enough, I'm sitting in my room alone, yet I've met thousands of people online just through loving a video game so much, and that community of League, I feel as maybe it gets painted toxic, there's of course a few bad apples, but that kind of being here at MSI, you get to see the people that play the game and realize that people have a lot of fun when they're playing with their friends, and a lot of fun just learning the game. You don't need to know it all, but as long as you're a part of it, you're kind of, as long as you're learning,
Yeah.
there's lots of learning to do. I guess with that, are there any specific changes that you'd like to talk about for the new player experience? Because for me on PBE, I see some champion like previews when I'm hovering. So what's that about?
Yeah, so yeah, kind of definitely Brawl, Swift Play, ability previews, all of that stuff is aimed at trying to make it easier and more digestible for a newer player. And, like I said, with the friend groups, just finding ways to make it more, I don't want to say diegetic's not necessarily the right word, but more accessible for people to get the information that they need, and to have the environment that they need to succeed when there's like very large skill gaps and they're not that good at the game. So we definitely understand and are prioritizing a lot of work aimed at just trying to make this type of experience better for players that are new in particular. Yeah,
Definitely. Part of the balancing of the game, you mentioned good at the game. Balancing a game this size is extremely difficult, and when you change a number by 5, you're gonna get clowned on by Reddit. You're gonna get outraged by people. You're gonna get drastically different play rates just because they appeared in the patch notes and things like that. Is there a type of, I know that sometimes balance tries to go to the wider audience and things like that, getting the middle, like 60-70% of people that enjoy the game. Do you guys have kind of ideas about how people should play the game, consume the game, learn the game, and that you kind of target changes to that 70%? Because, I feel like you kind of have to get an idea of who that is before you can then make those changes for those people.
Yeah. I definitely think that we know a lot about how different skill segments in particular optimize or just their general play tendencies. And so, for example, like, let's just take a champion like, I don't know, Azia or something, right? Azia used to be a very lane-dominant champion, and that was one of the things that made him, like, super strong in high levels of play. But low-level players don't necessarily benefit from that a lot. And so we also knew that kind of one of the major drawbacks of playing these types of, slow-scaling mages is that they can't fight objectives, the first 2 objectives generally, very well. They're just going to be a lot less effective than, I don't know, like a skirmishy type champion or like a Galio or something. And so we can definitely utilize some of these properties to make certain champions a lot better in some skill brackets and worse in others. And I would say we use those techniques pretty effectively. Like the design team kind of combined set of knowledge is pretty comprehensive across all of the champions and like how they would be optimized at different levels of play. And so we definitely take a lot of that into consideration anytime we're making any changes to any champions.
Yeah. Seeing my friends just starting the game, month in, a week in, things like that. There's definitely different ways in which they'll move their champion in general. So I imagine that challenge is kind of, it takes a lot of looking at, the lowest end, the highest end, the middle ground.
Yeah, we use a combination of like data, design intuition, just like broad understanding of how the people at different skill brackets pilot their champions, talking to pros, using our dev team experience. Like, it's just a whole bunch of that type of stuff,
The new player experience is definitely something that I'm excited to, I feel like when I help somebody, I'm a part of that. So I think that the community could, I think they do a good job of embracing it though. But I guess moving on from that, we talked about pro play, we talked about new players. I kind of wanted to talk about like competitiveness in League of Legends, because with any online video game that has a ladder, a ranked system, people are going to want to climb to the highest. There's people out there with that innate drive and things like that. How do different systems like ranked 5s, Clash, FlexQ, how do you kind of pick and choose where to put that effort into shaping a competitive experience for the non-upper echelon of players, right, here at MSI?
Yeah. It's something we know that there's a strong player desire for. I would call that type of group the social competitors, and a lot of our focus this and next year is going to be a lot about social competitors, social in general. It's a space that we know that there's a lot of desire for. And so I would say that that level of competition is, we have some of that with FlexQ and with Clash. I do think we could go further. One of the difficulties is, just technically, it's quite complex to make those types of things work. But it is a strong desire from both players and for us to fulfill.
Is that I know that Valorant has a game mode premiere. I'm not too familiar with Valorant, so I'm not going to speak out of my breath. But is that something that the Valorant engine and the newness of it kind of gains as an advantage in that technical depth?
Yeah, it definitely makes it a lot easier. We talk a lot with the Valorant rank team as well, just to share learnings and understand what things are working well and what things aren't working as well. I would say that because Clash was built so long ago and it has a lot of technical service debt and a lot of different things that need to talk to each other, it makes it pretty hard to make iterative improvements. But as of recent, we've made a lot of steps to try and both bring back Clash every month for players, because that's something that has been voiced as a very strong player desire, and also find ways to get better at our testing and running makeup clashes if things fail, but also wanting to respect that players do set aside that time on the weekends, and it's really disappointing when things don't work out. But it is an area that we, despite the complexities and despite the difficulties, we want to put in a lot of that effort to make it work for players, because we know that that is something that is so desired by them, that social competition. It's kind of like the pinnacle of what you would want out of a video game competition.
I very much feel that way. Like back when I was playing, I don't know, I was platinum or something like that. There used to be Microsoft Store tournaments. I'm not sure if you ever got the chance to go out to one, but that was so insanely fun because I'm finally in person competing. The teams were, fairly balanced, and, the meta was drastically different, but these are going to like 45, 50-minute games where it's anybody's game, and it's just a matter of, how good can you properly execute on your champion, and to be on stage next to the people. That part I felt was so, satisfying out of League of Legends, that I felt like that's an experience I feel like is almost inaccessible in a lot of other titles. Of course, there's like in-person Smash Brothers tournaments and college esports teams, they'll have tournaments and things like that. I guess the direction I'm going with that is sometimes those environments will be played on 0 ping. Ping has been such a highly debated, restriction, excuse, things like this. Let me just get your thoughts. What are your thoughts on ping?
It's definitely very noticeable when you're playing on low ping. When I was in Korea for first stand, and I kind of like slammed 20 games in kind of like D2, D1 area, and the players were very, very, very good because, they just can land everything, or they can dodge everything. Even spells that, on NA are pretty guaranteed, like a Victor E. Very, very not guaranteed, but or Oriana QWing someone, like people were dodging those on 0 ping, and that was just like extremely surprising to me. I guess it wasn't surprising because I'd experienced it before, but it was just like a good reminder of just how drastic that level of ping difference can be. And so it is definitely, I would say, a unfortunate trade-off that we have to make good ping for, everybody in America, like just broadly, or like North America, because it's kind of just like, okay, well, if you put it on the West Coast, then the East Coast people have like 150 ping or something. And so it's just like, it's one of those things that I do think is an unfortunate side effect of just optimizing for that. Ultimately, I still think it was kind of the right choice, but I wish that there was a way we could get around kind of, pro players or whatever being able to practice on those high levels so they're a bit more competitive and on an even footing at the highest levels,
Yeah, definitely. I guess I played, I had the amazing experience of being able to play Champions Queue way back when. And Champions Queue, you had to download the tournament client. For those who don't know, the tournament client is drastically different than, well, maybe not drastically different, but
It's pretty different.
there's definitely a lot of different server options in general with that. And of course, those have to be supported because of different, competitive systems and leagues and things that take place in different parts of the country. Valorant has distributed servers, right? I believe they use like AWS, named servers and things like that. Why isn't that possible for League?
I wouldn't say it's not. I wouldn't say it's impossible. I don't know enough about like the technical know-how of like how that works. It is. I know it was a conversation at the time that Valorant was launching, but I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know enough about like how the technical backend of it works to really talk authoritatively about it. I would say that if we could do it, that would obviously be very ideal for the highest levels of play. I would say for low levels of play, it's like kind of hard to tell whether or not you have 60 ping or 10 ping.
Yeah, I could definitely attest to that. I mean, I was bronze at one point, right?
Yeah.
So
It's definitely not ping that's holding back
no,
a bronze
definitely
player.
not. Yeah, I guess with distributed servers, if we were to talk hypothetical, those servers do require, a majority of the players to hopefully be in one location and that type of thing. Of course, segmenting off certain parts of the region and locking. I remember TSM, they moved to like the East Coast house at one point, which is crazy because the server wasn't even there and they were playing like 100 ping, but it's because they could get to Europe and things like that. Does League of Legends need more players in SoloQ?
I definitely think in certain regions we would benefit from more players, but every game could say that, and I think even with the player numbers we have right now are like kind of astronomical in terms of scale. But even then, I think especially matchmaking at the tails is always going to be problematic, just at a baseline because when you get to like let's just say in chess, it's like okay, well there's only like 3 people that are over like 2,800, right? And it's just matchmaking system and like ranked and skill is always just going to be like that. And so even if you have more players, you're still going to have the same type of problem, right? Where it's just like there's still only X number of people that are going to get to that level, right? And so even in Korea, where you would say that there's a high density of like extremely skilled players, queue times can still get very high at those upper echelons of skill just because of that effect. They're not going to get as high, but they're still going to be pretty high, right? And so I do think that having more players would definitely solve some of those issues, but we're still going to experience them in some capacity. Yeah,
Definitely. I guess with that, like talking at the edges, the very highest levels of play. When I first, kind of broke into that. I was like Grandmaster. I got around to that area. And I finally started getting matched in those games that you talk about, the players 2,800 and below, or 2,800 and above or whatever. The skill difference between someone who is top 100 consistently and someone who is top 500 consistently is incredible.
Yeah.
That is very hard to grasp unless you have seen it with your own eyes, I guess. Yeah. Despite that, though, League of Legends kind of maintains, even at the highest levels, win rates under 65%. Usually, maybe if they start a Smurf and lower games and whatnot, they can get 67% rank 1 challenger or whatever. How do you view League of Legends as a team game, despite the solo queue aspect of it, like the individual effect that each player needs to have towards a win in League?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting phenomenon that you point out there. I would say that we want to try our best to reward individual skill, but we don't want to overdo it to the point where that is the only person that matters at all times. And so we wanted to find ways for individual skill to translate into team success. And that was kind of one of the core design philosophies because, if the individual skill manifests as Rengar gets 21 kills and just repeatedly kills a person over and over again, as opposed to using that for doing objectives or taking towers or getting vision, those were some of the core principles that we wanted to make sure that individual agency in that respect didn't kind of get out of control and it just became a one-person show. And so it's a very intentional design choice to have it.
Can I ask when that philosophy kind of started within the League team?
I would say it was pretty much always there. I would say. Yeah, Tom Caedrel, who was one of the original designers, had a lot of very strong principles around these types of things, and so I would say that we've basically carried that forward and haven't really diverted our strategy that much. I think especially compared to Dota, there's a lot more of that type of one person just takes over the game entirely, and their carries tend to be both very tanky and deal a lot of damage. Like if you look at a full build anti-mage or something, it's there's like nothing you can do, right? And so it's kind of, we wanted to move away from that as kind of a intentional change that League of Legends would do. So I would say that we've kind of carried that design philosophy forwards. Yeah.
At least anecdotally, I can say that I really feel like when I started, the support had 5% impact, and the AD had 35% impact, right? That moving into the 20% impact on each player of just 100 divided by 5, right? That type of thing. I feel like it really hit it on the nose, and I think that's what makes League of Legends as a team game so much fun at the highest levels. There's something so addicting about knowing that your individual performance can make a difference. That's not always the case, of course. We're gonna have griefers, trolls, things like that, and those systems that are recently in place are definitely, personally, they're working, or at least to a certain degree. They're making changes. This might be a little bit of a curveball, but as our final question, how do streamers having an experience like this, their 20% impact, their responses to different gaming situations in League of Legends, how does that affect people's interest? Is that something that League of Legends even looks at with this like content community, that the way they react?
I would say that especially for the devs are players too, and the devs consume content, and we often have discussions about, I don't know, like the Mundo saga has been like kind of one of the ones recently, or even the Riven Teemo thing that was on socials recently. So we're very aware of a lot of those things. I would say that because we're in the West, we're a lot more Western biased, and there's some subset of the dev team that monitors non-Western social media as well, and tries to bring those things to our attention. But I would say in general, like, the team feels very clued into what's happening in the community and is pretty responsive to it. And I would say that, even if it's not the optimal choice on a purely objective basis to nerf or buff a certain champion because the community feels a certain way, like sometimes it's just the right thing to do. And so we're definitely trying to strike the fine balance between doing what is objectively correct versus what players feel like is correct.
Like Tank Fizz.
Like Tank Fizz. Or like Mundo being 50%, but everyone's saying that he needs to be nerfed, right? Like those are the types of things that we need to be responsive to and understand kind of the core of why do people feel like Mundo needs to be nerfed when he's at 50%, right? And are there things that we can change as opposed to just being like, oh, well, Mundo's at 50%, we'll just leave him, right? Like, what are they actually trying to say? Well, it's just kind of like, well, does Mundo need to snowball as strongly to achieve his character fantasy, or like what his strategic identity is, right? Does he need to be so useless in the early game to achieve that top end, or should it be just, he could still be 50%, but it could be just the power distribution is just a little bit different. Like maybe his early game's a little stronger on average, maybe his late game's a little less strong on average, and then you might, players might feel like that's more reasonable.
Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope people learned something, and hope to talk to you soon or something. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for that conversation. That was so amazing. My camera died on this one, but it's whatever.
No.
That was a 30-minute conversation. That was so awesome.
Glad we could make it happen.
Glad we
could make it happen.
Yeah, definitely.